My name's Elias. I'm 28, and if you met me, you'd probably say I'm the calm one in any group. I've never been the loud sibling, never been the one to demand attention at the table or interrupt stories to make them about myself. That role always belonged to my younger sister, Camille. 2 years younger, impossibly loud, and somehow always the center of my parents' universe. Growing up, I learned to stay quiet. When Camille screamed and cried over getting the blue plate instead of the pink one, Mom would swap mine out without even asking. When she forgot her homework or got a bad grade, Dad would say, "She's just got a creative mind." If I brought home straight A's, it was, "That's what we expect from you, Elias." It was subtle at first, little things that made me feel more like the supporting actor in my own life. But over time, those little things piled into a mountain of quiet resentment I never let anyone see. Not until recently. Camille got engaged last year to a guy named Ryan. Generic finance bro, the kind who acts like he invented brunch. We weren't close. He once mistook me for a waiter at our cousin's wedding. I let it go. Camille loved him, and as much as I wanted to roll my eyes at the whole thing, I kept my mouth shut. I even congratulated her when she announced it at Christmas, even though she did it in the middle of me telling everyone about a promotion I'd just gotten. She cut me off halfway through. "Sorry, but this can't wait," she squealed, flashing the ring around. Mom shrieked. Dad teared up. My news was forgotten in 10 seconds flat. That night, I went home with a knot in my stomach and a fake smile still plastered on my face. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd ask me to help plan the engagement party or at least be part of it. But the next few weeks passed in silence. No texts, no calls, no invitations. I figured they were just slow with the planning. Then I saw the photos on Facebook. My sister standing in the middle of a rented garden space, holding champagne, flanked by family, my parents, my cousins, even my Aunt Celine who lives 3 hours away and always claims she's too tired for parties. Everyone was there. Everyone but me. I waited a full day before calling my mom. I needed time to calm down, to keep from sounding angry. She picked up on the second ring, all cheerful and breathy like she'd just finished laughing. "Elias, everything okay?" "I saw the pictures," I said. My voice sounded hollow, even to me. "Oh," she said. Then silence. "You didn't invite me." There was a pause, and then her voice hardened ever so slightly. "Well, I didn't think you'd want to come. You've always had this thing when it comes to Camille. It's her moment, Elias. We just didn't want drama." My ears rang. Drama? What drama have I ever caused? "You know what I mean," she said lightly, like brushing off a bug. "You always seem to sulk around these things. You've never liked being outshined. And Camille deserves a peaceful celebration." I couldn't even form words. My brain was still trying to register that my own mother thought I'd be jealous, that I'd ruin my sister's engagement party just by showing up. So I said the only thing that came to me, the only thing I could say without my voice cracking. "Then you won't mind missing my wedding too." There was a pause, the longest pause I'd ever heard from her. Then she laughed. Not loud, not cruel. Just a dry, awkward chuckle like she didn't know what else to say. "Elias, don't be ridiculous." "I'm not," I said calmly. "Have a nice evening." I hung up, and for the first time in my adult life, I didn't feel like the quiet, forgotten sibling. I felt angry and focused. I had been quietly dating someone for nearly 2 years. Her name is Mariah. She's brilliant, kind, and the one person who never made me feel like I had to compete to be seen. We'd already talked about marriage. I hadn't proposed yet, but I'd been planning to, quietly, without a big crowd. After that call with my mom, though, something changed. A month later, I proposed. Mariah said yes. And I started planning something I never thought I'd do, a wedding without my family. We didn't post anything online. We didn't send out announcements. I called Aunt Celine privately, told her the whole story, and she hugged me through the phone. "You have every right, Eli," she said. "You deserve to be celebrated, not stepped on." She helped us pick a venue. It was modest, a cozy old manor house about an hour outside the city. Elegant without being over the top. Mariah's family was excited. They helped with everything: flowers, cake, invitations. I'd never felt so supported in my life. I sent out physical invitations, carefully addressed, with a simple RSVP card tucked inside. But none went to my parents. None to Camille. I didn't block them. I didn't announce anything online. I just let the silence linger, the same way they'd let it linger with me. 3 weeks later, I got a text from my cousin Lily. It was a photo, My wedding invitation sitting on Aunt Celine's kitchen counter. The caption read, "Your mom just saw this. She's not doing well." And then my phone started ringing. It was my mother. I didn't pick up. Then my father. Then Camille. I let every call go to voicemail. And then, at 11:07 p.m., I got a message that just read, "Elias, please." We didn't mean it like that. I stared at the screen for a long time. My heart was racing, but not from guilt. From clarity. They were only reaching out because they'd been excluded for once. They had no idea what was coming next. The next morning, I woke up to 5 more missed calls and 2 voicemails from my mom. Her voice cracking, one message starting with "please call me," and ending in muffled sobs. The other was quieter. "We're your family, Elias. This isn't right. You're being cruel." That word, cruel, stuck with me like a splinter. It echoed in my head while I brushed my teeth, while I buttoned my shirt, while I poured coffee into the travel mug Mariah had given me months ago with "future groom" etched in gold cursive. Cruel. As if I hadn't spent the past decade swallowing my pride while they celebrated Camille like she was the only child who mattered. As if I hadn't smiled through insult after insult, been ignored through every birthday, every promotion, every meaningful moment in my life that they'd brushed aside like it was background noise to the Camille show. Cruel? No. This was the first time I'd simply stepped out of their shadow. By that afternoon, the group chat, the dreaded family chat that I'd muted long ago, lit up like wildfire. I didn't even open it at first. I saw the previews. Did anyone else get this? Wait, Elias is getting married. Why weren't we invited? Celine, did you know? One message from Camille stood out. "This is petty, Eli. You're acting like a child." Petty. Right. I typed, then erased, then typed again before finally sending a single reply. "I'm simply respecting the boundaries you all set. You made it clear where I stand in this family. I'm not bitter, just done pretending it doesn't hurt." I turned off notifications after that. I didn't need their approval. I wasn't doing this to make a point. I was doing this because, for once, I wanted to start a new chapter without dragging the old pain with me. But of course, my family wasn't going to let it go that easily. A few days later, Mariah and I were meeting with the florist when my dad showed up. No warning, no text, just walked into the shop like he owned the place. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept in days, but there was that same stern tightness in his jaw that I remembered from childhood. The look that said, "You're disappointing me." "Can we talk?" he asked. Mariah glanced at me, unsure. "It's okay," I said to her. "Give us a minute." She nodded and stepped outside. My dad sat down across from me, folding his hands on the little round table. "This has gone far enough, Elias." "Has it?" I asked evenly. "You've made your point. You're upset. Fine. But punishing your mother like this? Leaving her out of her only son's wedding?" I blinked. Only son. First time I'd heard him refer to me like that in years. "I didn't set out to punish anyone," I said. "But you all left me out of Camille's engagement. Didn't even tell me it was happening." "That's different," he muttered. "Camille needed." "Needed what?" I snapped, louder than I intended. "A perfect day? And you thought I'd ruin it just by showing up?" He looked away. I kept going. "You made me feel like a threat to my own sister's happiness. Like I was poison. And you never once asked how that felt." He sighed. "We didn't think it would matter so much to you. You've always been independent. That's code for we thought you'd take it and stay quiet." And I always did. He was silent again. I could see in his eyes that he didn't know what to say, not because he didn't have excuses, but because this was the first time he'd ever been asked to listen to me instead of assuming I'd just go along with it. "We're not trying to hurt you," he finally said, quieter this time. "We just thought you didn't care." I stood up. "That's the problem. You never thought to check." He looked up at me. "Can we at least come to the wedding?" I paused. For a second, I wanted to say yes. I wanted to believe he meant it. But then I remembered every year I spent watching them cheer for Camille while pretending I wasn't there. Every time they turned birthdays and holidays into background noise unless she was the center. Every phone call I initiated, never the other way around. I took a deep breath. "I think, maybe this time, you need to feel what it's like to be left out." He didn't argue, just nodded slowly and walked out of the shop. Later that evening, I told Mariah everything. She didn't say much, just wrapped her arms around me and rested her head on my shoulder. "You didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. And I believed her. But things didn't end there. A week later, A photo started circulating through the family, a blurry image of the invitation on Celine's fridge. Someone posted it on Facebook. Then another cousin commented on it. Suddenly, my engagement, the one I tried to keep quiet, was out in the open. People were texting again. Not just my parents, but distant relatives I hadn't seen in years. Some saying congratulations. Others accusing me of being cruel, selfish, ungrateful. Then Camille posted something on her Instagram story. A long paragraph over a black background. Some people would rather burn bridges than admit they've been toxic. It's sad when your own brother is so bitter, he excludes his family from his wedding just to get attention. I stared at it for a long time. Then I screenshotted it and added my own post the next morning. A photo of Mariah and me, laughing in the sun, holding hands in front of the venue we'd chosen. No caption, just the date. I didn't tag anyone. I didn't need to. Because the next message I received wasn't from Camille. It was from my mom. A single sentence. Please don't do this, Elias. Please let us come. I stared at that message for a long time. And then something happened that changed everything. Something I hadn't expected. Something that made me realize this story wasn't just about a wedding anymore. It was about finally reclaiming something I hadn't had in years. And it all started with a knock at my door. It was a quiet Saturday morning when it happened. One of those slow, golden mornings where sunlight pools in the corners of the living room and everything feels still. Mariah had gone out early for a final dress fitting with her sister, and I was home alone, sipping coffee in sweats, going over the final guest list. The knock was soft, hesitant, like whoever was on the other side didn't know whether they really wanted to be there. I opened the door and froze. Camille. She looked different. Not physically. She still had that same perfectly put-together look, the kind that screams effortless, while clearly taking hours. But there was something in her eyes. Something I hadn't seen since we were kids. Uncertainty. Maybe even guilt. We stood there in silence for a long moment before she spoke. Can I come in? I didn't say yes. I just stepped back and let her in. She walked past me like she didn't know what to do with her hands, stopping just shy of the couch, hovering like a ghost. Nice place, she said. Then caught herself. I mean, of course it is. You've always had good taste. I didn't respond. I just leaned against the wall and waited. She turned to face me, taking a breath like she was diving underwater. Look, I know you're mad. And I get it. I do. But I didn't know Mom didn't invite you to the engagement party. I swear. My arms crossed without thinking. You didn't notice I wasn't there? Her jaw tightened. I figured you were busy. Or maybe you were just doing your usual, too cool for this thing. I almost laughed. Right? The same way I was too cool for every other event I was quietly left out of. She winced. That's not fair, isn't it? I said, you hijacked my promotion announcement at Christmas. You've taken over every birthday, every holiday, and I never once said a word. Not until now. She looked down at her shoes, biting her bottom lip like she did when we were kids, and she got caught sneaking candy. I didn't mean to make everything about me, she said quietly. It's just that's how Mom and Dad are. They always push me to be the star. I guess I got used to it. That doesn't make it okay, I said. They trained you to act like I was optional, and you never questioned it. Silence settled between us again. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath her heels. Then she finally looked up. Why didn't you tell me about the wedding? There was no malice in her voice. Just confusion. Hurt, even. I wanted peace, I said. I wanted one thing in my life that didn't come with baggage. Didn't come with expectations or backhanded comments or being made to feel like I don't belong. I wanted a clean start. She nodded slowly, her eyes glossing with unshed tears. You could have told me. Just me. I shook my head. I didn't trust you. That hurt her. I could see it. And maybe part of me wanted it too. Just a little. I'm not asking you to invite Mom, she said. Or Dad. I'm not even asking you to forgive me right now. But can I be there? Please? Just me. It was the first time in years I'd heard her voice without that smug, spotlight-soaked tone. Just Camille, my sister, asking for something without expecting it to be handed to her. I didn't answer. Not right away. Because just as I opened my mouth to respond, my phone buzzed on the counter. I glanced at the screen, and my stomach dropped. It was a notification from Facebook. A post from my mother. Public. When your only son decides to exclude his family from the happiest day of his life, you have to wonder where you went wrong. We loved him. We raised him. and now he wants to erase us. I just hope he comes to his senses before it's too late. I stared at it, then showed Camille. Her eyes widened. She posted this today? I nodded. And just like that, the moment shattered. The look on Camille's face shifted. She looked tired, angry even, but not at me. She promised she'd stay out of it, she muttered. She said she'd let me try. I couldn't believe it. Not because my mom had done something manipulative. I'd seen that playbook 100 times. But because it suddenly became clear that this wasn't just about me anymore. It was about control, about appearances, about mom and dad needing the narrative to be in their hands. Camille sank onto the couch and buried her face in her hands. She's not even upset about missing the wedding. She's upset she doesn't get to show off at it. I didn't say anything, because she was right. She looked up at me, red-eyed and hoarse. What do you want to do? I picked up my phone, slowly, and looked at the Facebook post again. 100 likes. Dozens of comments from extended family. People choosing sides. I don't know yet, I said. And I didn't. Because as much as I wanted to shut the door on them completely, part of me wondered if that door was already being ripped off its hinges. But I wasn't going to let them spin their version of the story unchallenged. Not this time. And as Camille sat silently on my couch, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, a new idea started to take root. One they would never see coming. One they would never be able to spin. And it all started with a list, a guest list, to be specific, that I was about to update. Camille sat with her elbows on her knees, rubbing her temples like she was nursing a migraine. I could feel the weight of her silence as I paced the living room. The Facebook post still sat open on my phone screen like a slap across the face. A reminder that no matter how quiet I tried to be, my family always found a way to turn the narrative against me. She made it public, I said finally. She made me public. Turned this into some kind of sob story so she can play the victim. Again, Camille didn't argue. She just shook her head. She told me she wouldn't say anything. I told her to let me try first. She doesn't care what you say, I muttered. She never did. That wasn't fair. I knew that, but it felt true in that moment. My chest burned with a strange mix of vindication and sadness. It was everything I'd expected, but it still hurt. I sat down across from her. The idea I'd been nursing, the one that had begun forming the second I saw my mom's post, finally started to solidify into something real, something bold. I want to change the guest list, I said. Camille looked up, startled. To what? I stared at her, weighing the risk. I'll let you come. And Aunt Celine. And Lily. That's it. She blinked. You're serious? You're the only one who showed up to say anything in person. The only one who owned up to what's been going on. You don't deserve to be punished for their choices. Camille nodded slowly. Thank you, she whispered, voice cracking. But, I said, holding up a hand, don't expect forgiveness overnight. This isn't some magical reunion. It's one small step. I get that, she said, standing. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry. I should have stood up for you years ago. I didn't reply. I just nodded once, and she left. That night, I showed Mariah the post. She read it slowly, then looked at me. Do you want to respond? She asked. I do, I said, but not online. I want to respond in person, on our terms. Her brow furrowed. What are you thinking? I smiled for the first time in hours. I want to make our wedding about us, not them. But if they're going to paint me as the villain for taking control of my life, then maybe it's time I embrace it, just once. Mariah didn't even hesitate. Then let's make this wedding unforgettable. The day of the wedding arrived with a strange, electric calm. The sky was a perfect blue, the air light and warm. We'd chosen to hold it outdoors, under the arching trees of the manor garden. Flowers lined the pathway, soft piano music drifted from the speakers, and guests began to arrive with gentle excitement in their voices. People who mattered. People who knew both of us, supported us, saw us. Celine arrived first, dabbing her eyes as she hugged me. Your parents are losing their minds right now, she whispered with a smirk. Camille told me your mom threw her phone across the room this morning. Maybe now she knows how it feels, I said with a small shrug. Then Camille arrived. For the first time in her life, she didn't try to steal the spotlight. She wore a simple pastel dress, minimal makeup, and hugged Mariah like they were old friends. She didn't speak much, just sat quietly with Celine and Lily near the front, watching everything with a look I didn't recognize on her face. Maybe pride, maybe guilt, maybe both. The ceremony was short but beautiful. When I saw Mariah walking down the aisle, Every bitter thought, every ache from the past dissolved into something soft. She was radiant. We said our vows under a canopy of leaves, kissed to the sound of our closest friends cheering, and walked back down the aisle hand in hand. We didn't need a crowd. We just needed each other. At the reception, people laughed, danced, toasted us with heartfelt speeches. I thought about making a speech of my own, a subtle, veiled message to the family that had abandoned me, something poetic. But I didn't. Instead, I focused on the joy around me. For once, I didn't feel like a background character. I was living my story. It wasn't until the cake was being served that the real surprise came. A waiter approached me cautiously with a small envelope. "This was just delivered at the front gate," he said. "They said it was urgent." I frowned and took it, stepping aside to open it. Inside was a handwritten note. My mother's handwriting. "Elias, we saw the photos. We saw the post. We know we've hurt you, more than we ever realized. I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know something. You were never unwanted. We were just too blind, too foolish to show you the love you deserved. I made mistakes. I made a lot of them. But today, I saw what you've built, and I've never been more proud of you. I hope one day you'll let us try again." Mom. I stood there for a while, the paper trembling in my hands. Mariah walked over, concern in her eyes. "Everything okay?" I handed her the note. She read it, then looked at me. "What do you want to do?" I didn't answer right away. I stared out at the garden, the guests laughing, the golden light of sunset settling over everything like a blessing. My mother's note didn't undo years of damage. It didn't erase the pain or the absence or the way they'd made me feel small. But it was a start. A late, fumbling, human start. "I don't know yet," I said. "But I know one thing." "What's that?" I turned to her, took her hand, and smiled. "This is the happiest day of my life. And nothing is going to take that from me." A month later, we were back from our honeymoon, sifting through wedding photos when the doorbell rang. Mariah answered. I heard her talking softly to someone, then footsteps coming toward me. My mom stood there in the hallway. No makeup, no perfect hair, just jeans, a cardigan, and red eyes. She didn't say anything, just held out a small wooden box. I opened it. Inside was every childhood photo of me I thought had been lost. Birthday parties, school awards, a handmade Father's Day card I'd written for my dad at age 7. She looked up at me, her voice shaking. "I found this in the attic last week. Thought you'd thrown it all away." But I couldn't. I didn't say a word. I just nodded and took the box. It would take time. Maybe years. Maybe longer. But for the first time in my life, the spotlight didn't matter. I wasn't the extra anymore. I was the main character. "My name's James. I'm 42, and I thought I had a decent life. Not perfect. I don't think anyone's is, but decent. Married for 16 years, 2 kids, Mia and Logan. I've always been a family-first kind of guy. I coach Logan's soccer team, used to braid Mia's hair before school, and I've never once missed a birthday or a holiday. I work in IT, remote for the past 6 years, which meant I could pick the kids up from school, help with homework, be there. My wife, Eliza, works in real estate. She's great at it. Always dressed to impress, always talking, always moving. For a long time, I admired her energy. Now, I'm not sure if I ever really knew her. Father's Day was coming up. You'd think after so many years it would lose a bit of its shine, but I always looked forward to it. It wasn't about the gifts or anything grand. It was the one day where I felt seen, appreciated. A card, maybe breakfast in bed, a morning of cartoons with the kids, something simple. But that year, Eliza kept hinting at something big. "Don't make any plans," she kept saying, smiling just a little too wide. "We've got something special in store." Mia even giggled when I tried to guess. "You'll see," she said. "You'll love it." I woke up that Sunday and the bed was empty. No smell of pancakes, no footsteps down the hall. Just the hum of the ceiling fan and the silence of a house not waiting for me. I figured maybe they were setting something up. I brushed my teeth, threw on a hoodie, and waited. 9 o'clock. Still quiet. No noise from the kitchen. I checked Mia's room, empty. Same with Logan's. I looked in the garage. Eliza's car was gone. By noon, I was confused. Maybe there was some mix-up? Maybe they'd gone out to get something. Or there was a reservation I didn't know about. I checked my phone for a message. Anything. Nothing. Then I opened Instagram. That was the moment everything shifted. A story from Mia. A boomerang of a mimosa clinking with a glass of orange juice. Then a slow pan across a restaurant table. Eliza, Mia, Logan, and her sister, Tasha. Everyone smiling, laughing. The caption hit me like a punch to the gut. Best dad ever, when he's not around, lol. I didn't even know how to react. I just stared at the screen. My brain was trying to process what I was seeing, but my chest was already ahead of it, tightening up, burning. Was this a joke? A prank? Was I not invited? I didn't text. I didn't call. I just sat there, phone in hand, still in my hoodie, the same one Mia had gotten me last Christmas. I waited and waited. Nothing. The rest of the day was a blur. I remember heating up leftover pasta, sitting on the porch with the dog, watching the sky get dark and wondering if they'd even come home that night. They didn't. Monday came and went. I worked, logged into meetings, went through the motions. No one mentioned Father's Day. Not my coworkers, not my family. I started to wonder if I was the crazy one. Tuesday morning, around 9:20 a.m., my phone exploded. 63 missed calls, a dozen texts, and one from Mia that just said, "Please come home. We didn't know." That was the moment I realized something deeper was going on. Something worse than just being forgotten or left out. Because they had come home, and I wasn't there. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Why didn't I go back? Why didn't I blow up their phones on Sunday, demand answers, show up at that brunch in person? I've asked myself that, too. But when something like this happens, something so off-kilter, you don't react the way you think you would. You freeze. You wait. You hope it's not what it looks like. That there's a logical explanation, some surprise twist where everything's okay. But I had a creeping feeling in my gut that told me, James, you're not the main character anymore. Not in your own home. Still, I didn't respond. Not immediately. I needed to understand what the hell had happened. Why a day meant for me had turned into a celebration of me not being there. Why Mia, who used to draw me stick figure cards and call me her superhero dad, was now posting stories like I was a joke. The voicemail from Eliza was frantic. James, please call me. The kids are upset. I don't know what you're doing, but this isn't funny. Just come home. We can talk. Please. I listened to it twice. Her voice was shaky, but not apologetic. Not even surprised. More annoyed. Like I was the one pulling a stunt. That's when I decided to start digging. I logged into our shared Google account. I knew she never signed out, not because she trusted me, but because she wasn't tech-savvy. Calendar entries, emails, locations, all synced. I scrolled through her recent searches and saw Father's Day brunch ideas, funny dad captions, and strangely, how to handle manipulative husbands. That stopped me cold. Then, in her emails, a thread with her sister. Subject, Sunday plans. I clicked it open. There it was. Just make sure James doesn't find out, Tasha had written. Eliza's reply. He won't. I told him it's a surprise. This way we can have a peaceful brunch for once. He'll probably enjoy the quiet. Peaceful brunch. Enjoy the quiet. That's when something snapped. All these years, I thought I was appreciated. Maybe not celebrated. I wasn't looking for parades, but at least respected. But to be left behind, lied to, then mocked online? That was something else entirely. That was premeditated cruelty. I didn't reply to the texts. I didn't call back. I started going over every little thing I'd overlooked over the past year. The late-night showings that took hours. The way Logan started calling Tasha's husband Uncle Mark more affectionately than me. The way Mia had started rolling her eyes when I asked her to spend time together. The way Eliza would sigh when I talked about work, like I was boring her. I started seeing it all differently. Not as isolated moments, but as pieces of a bigger picture I'd refused to look at. I checked the home cameras. We'd installed them 2 years ago after a break-in scare. Eliza had access too, but she rarely used them. I pulled up the footage from Sunday morning. At 7:46 a.m., I saw them all piling into the car. Mia, dressed in a pink sundress. Logan in a little button-up and khakis. Eliza in heels, laughing. She tossed a glance toward the front door, where I was still asleep, and said something I couldn't hear. The three of them laughed. Then they drove off. They hadn't just left me. They'd laughed. And for what? A joke? A break? A photo op? That night, I packed a bag. Laptop. Chargers. A week's worth of clothes. I didn't leave a note. I knew they'd notice soon enough. I checked into a hotel across town. Nothing fancy. Just a place with working Wi-Fi and clean sheets. I needed space. I needed time. But more than that, I needed a plan. Because something in me had shifted. Something I couldn't put back. I wasn't going to let this slide. I wasn't going to play the fool anymore. and I wasn't going home. Not yet. Not until I decided what kind of storm I was going to bring with me. The first night at the hotel, I barely slept. Not because the bed was uncomfortable, it was fine, better than the pull-out couch I used during Logan's sleepovers, but because my brain wouldn't shut off. I lay there staring at the ceiling, my mind jumping between memories like a broken slideshow. Christmas mornings, soccer games, Mia's science fair, late nights on the porch with Eliza when the kids were little, just sipping coffee and talking about dreams. But now, those same memories felt distorted, like someone had scribbled over them in red ink. I kept replaying that brunch story in my head. The laughter, the mimosa, that caption, best dad ever when he's not around LOL. That word, LOL, looped in my head like a bad song. It was casual, offhand, like I was some sitcom character they could laugh about. But I wasn't. I was the guy who paid for the mortgage, fixed the leaky sink, helped with algebra homework, gave up job opportunities so I could be home more. And apparently, none of that had meant anything. Tuesday night, I finally messaged Mia. Just 2 words. I saw. She read it almost immediately. Then the typing bubble appeared and vanished. Reappeared. Vanished again. I waited, heart racing, but no reply came. Just silence. I was halfway through a takeout burger when my phone lit up. This time it was Logan. Dad? Are you mad? Mad. That wasn't the word. I wasn't mad like when someone cuts you off in traffic. I was gutted, hollowed out. But I didn't want to put that on an 11-year-old. I'm okay. I texted. We'll talk soon. He sent back a thumbs up emoji. That hurt more than it should have. By Wednesday, Eliza had tracked down the hotel. I don't know how, maybe she checked my last credit card charge, maybe she guessed. She called the front desk, and they patched her through to my room. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail again, this one tighter, more controlled. James, this is getting ridiculous. The kids are worried. You're making a bigger deal out of this than it needs to be. Can we please just talk like adults? Come home. We'll clear the air. Like adults. Like adults who ditch you on a holiday and post about it publicly. I didn't respond. Instead, I went to work. I wasn't just sitting around anymore. I started pulling pieces together. First, I made a copy of every financial file we had. Bank accounts, credit cards, mortgage, investment accounts. Eliza handled most of our finances, she'd insisted, said she was better with numbers. I trusted her. But now I wanted to see everything. And I did. There were odd charges. Venmo payments to names I didn't recognize. A rental deposit paid in full in another city. Weekly lunch charges from a restaurant far from her usual listings. My stomach turned. Then I dug into our shared Dropbox. Years ago, we used it for family photos, travel plans, budgeting spreadsheets. She still used it occasionally, probably forgot I even had access. Buried in a subfolder was a document titled Plan B. I opened it, pulse pounding. It was a list. A very detailed one. New apartment walkthrough. Check lawyer consult scheduled. Check joint account split estimate what to do if James resists. Tasha can talk to him, keep kids neutral. Don't overshare. I just sat there for a long time staring at it. If James resists, like I was an obstacle, like I was a thing to be managed, not a person, not her husband, not their father. This wasn't just a brunch. This was an escape plan. And that's when the weight of it really hit me. They hadn't forgotten me. They'd excluded me. On purpose. To test the waters. See how life felt without me. And maybe, if I hadn't checked Instagram, they would have carried on like nothing happened. Let the plan unfold on their terms. Quiet, neat, controlled. But now? Now the ball was in my court. I took the rest of that Wednesday to get my ducks in a row. I made appointments. Called a friend who worked in family law. Rented a private mailbox. Opened a separate bank account. I wasn't planning to burn the house down, not yet. But I was making sure if Eliza wanted war, she wouldn't be the only one holding the match. Thursday morning, I got an email from the school. Mia had skipped 2 classes. Logan had been pulled out early. My guess? Eliza trying to smooth things over, paint this as daddy's having a moment. But I knew my kids. Mia might be drifting, sure. But Logan? He was a straight arrow. If he left early, it was because he was confused, hurt. I decided it was time to talk to them. Not Eliza. Not yet. But the kids. I texted Mia. Meet me at the diner near the park. 5 p.m. Just you and Logan. No pressure. She replied within 5 minutes, okay. At 4:50, I was already in the booth. A milkshake waiting for Logan and fries for Mia, her favorite. They walked in holding hands, both looking smaller than I remembered. Mia had her hoodie pulled over her head, and Logan wouldn't stop fidgeting with his sleeve. Mia slid into the booth and stared at me. Her eyes were puffy. She looked like she hadn't slept. "Dad," she started, but I held up my hand. "Let me go first." They listened. I told them everything I knew. That I saw the brunch. That I read the messages. That I knew about the emails. I didn't yell. I didn't guilt trip them. I just laid it out. Mia looked like she wanted to disappear into her seat. "We didn't know the whole plan," she said finally. "Mom said you were tired. That you'd be annoyed if we made a fuss. That it was just one brunch. She said it was a girl's thing," Logan muttered. "But then I was there too." I nodded. "I know. It's not your fault. But I want you to hear this from me. I'm not disappearing. I love you both. And no matter what happens between me and Mom, you're still my kids." Mia started crying. Logan did too. And in that moment, I realized something. Eliza might have been planning her perfect escape, but she hadn't told the kids the whole story. She tried to rope them into her narrative, but they were still on the fence. Still reachable. I hugged them both before they left. Told them I'd be in touch soon. Told them things were going to be okay, even if they didn't look like they used to. Back at the hotel that night, I poured myself a drink. Sat at the tiny desk with my laptop open and stared at the folder I'd built. I named it Reset, because that's what this was. Not just revenge. Not just justice. A reset. But first, I had one more conversation to have. One that had been a long time coming. I opened my phone, scrolled to Eliza's name, and hit record on the voice memo app. Then I called. Her voice came on, smooth as ever. "James? Finally. Are you ready to stop being dramatic?" I smiled. "Not dramatic, Eliza. Just getting started." And then I asked her one question, a question I already knew the answer to and waited for her to lie. "So," I said evenly, "how long have you been planning to leave me?" The silence that followed was thick. No breathing. No shuffling. Just the low static hum of tension vibrating through the line. Then, finally, she responded. "What?" Her voice was higher than usual. Almost light. Dismissive. I asked how long, I repeated, my tone still calm. "You know. Plan B. The apartment. The lawyer consult. The budget spreadsheet. I read it all, Eliza." "I know." She laughed, short, forced, like a cough dressed up as amusement. You went through my stuff? You left it in our shared folder," I said. "You didn't even bother to hide it. Was I supposed to keep smiling while you packed your escape route?" Another pause. Then her voice hardened. "You don't understand. Things haven't been working for a long time. You just don't see it because you're always in your own world." I felt something flicker in my chest. Not pain. Not yet. Just the familiar sting of being blamed for someone else's detour. I work from home. I drive the kids. I cook. I clean. I try to give you space. Time. Support. If I missed something, you could have said so. But instead, you planned a brunch to celebrate me not being there. "You're twisting it," she snapped. "It was supposed to be lighthearted. It was supposed to be a test run," I said. "And you know it." Her silence told me everything I needed. "Do they know?" I asked. "Mia and Logan." "About the apartment?" "The lawyer." "No," she said quickly. "Of course not. Why would I tell them something that might not even happen?" "Because it already is happening, Eliza." I let that hang. I knew I was pushing her, but I needed to see what she'd do. If she'd back down. If she'd deny everything. But instead, she doubled down. "I'm not doing this with you over the phone," she said curtly. "If you want to talk, come home." "Why?" "So I can walk into a house that's already been emotionally emptied out?" "You're being dramatic, James." There it was again. That word. "I'm being precise," I said, lowering my voice. "And for what it's worth, you could have told me the truth. You didn't have to turn the kids into pawns in some sick little performance. Don't you dare drag them into this. I already met with them." I cut in. "They're not stupid. They feel it too. You've been playing chess, Eliza, and I'm just now realizing I was never your partner. I was a piece." Another silence. But this one felt different. Not stunned. Calculated. "Okay," she said finally. "So what now?" Now. That was the question. I didn't answer right away. I wanted her to sweat a little. Feel what it was like to be left in the dark for once. But more importantly, I needed more time to prepare. Because what I was planning wasn't just revenge. It was revelation. A carefully constructed unraveling. "I'll be in touch," I said, and ended the call. I sat there for a moment, letting the quiet fill the space where her voice had been. My heart was pounding. but my mind was clearer than it had been in weeks. I wasn't out to destroy her. I was out to expose the version of herself she had worked so hard to sell to me, to the kids, to the world, and let the truth speak for itself. That night, I called my lawyer friend, Darren. We'd gone to college together, lost touch, and reconnected last year when his firm helped with some tech compliance contracts. I didn't tell him everything, not yet. Just the basics. Eliza's planning something. I found documentation. I need to protect myself. And the kids. He didn't ask why I hadn't come to him sooner. Just said, let's meet Friday. I'll prep the paperwork. Bring everything you have. That gave me 2 days. 2 days to finish what I'd started. The next morning, I went to our safe deposit box, something Eliza probably forgot existed. Inside were old documents, insurance policies, backup drives, and importantly, the original house deed. I made copies of everything, then went to the bank to freeze the joint savings account. Not drain it, just freeze it. I didn't want to financially ruin her. I just wanted to make it very clear I wasn't the passive fool she'd taken me for. That the man she left behind on Father's Day was not the same man she was dealing with now. When I returned to the hotel, there was a letter under my door. James, please. We need to talk. The kids are scared. I don't know what you're doing, but we're still a family. Let's just come home. I'll explain everything. It wasn't handwritten. It was printed. That small detail told me more than the words did. She still thought this was damage control. That I could be talked down. That a warm smile and a few tears could smooth over weeks, maybe months, of manipulation. She didn't realize yet that the story had changed. So I did something she never expected. I wrote my own letter. Not to her. To the kids. I wrote about how much I loved them. How I was still their dad. How I wasn't running away, but choosing to fight differently. I explained, in age-appropriate terms, that sometimes adults lie, even the ones we trust. And that when they do, we don't repay that lie with more silence. We speak up. We stand tall. We protect what matters. I told them I would never ask them to choose sides. That I knew they loved their mom, and that was okay. But I also told them I wouldn't be a ghost in their life, not even for one more day. And then I mailed the letter. Not emailed. Not texted. Mailed. Tangible. Something they could hold. Something real. I was done with illusions. That night, I went through the last of the digital files. Old voicemails. Screenshots. Calendar notes. Little pieces of evidence that showed just how long I'd been living in a house where the door had already been quietly closing behind me. By the time Friday morning rolled around, I was ready. I showed up to Darren's office with a flash drive, 2 binders, and a list of questions. Legal custody. Financial separation. Emergency arrangements. I wanted to be thorough. Not for revenge for my kids. So they'd never have to wonder who fought for them. Halfway through the meeting, my phone buzzed. A new Instagram post. From Eliza. It was a picture of her and the kids, smiling. A throwback photo. The caption read, "Some people break your heart and still expect you to love them." And just like that, I realized she'd started spinning her version of the story. Publicly. Before the truth could catch up. But she'd miscalculated one thing. I wasn't reacting anymore. I was preparing. And when I was done, everyone would know who she really was. I waited exactly 1 week. Not because I was unsure. I wasn't. But because revenge, real revenge, doesn't come from rage. It comes from clarity. Precision. I wanted Eliza to sit with her choices, watch her narrative spin, feel like she had the upper hand. That's what made what came next so much more satisfying. It started with the truth. I posted a letter. Not to social media. I wasn't going to play her game on her turf, but to our neighborhood forum, the school parent board, and yes, a private post sent to every family member on both sides. I kept it calm. Mature. Just facts. I told them what had happened on Father's Day, no drama, no flourishes. Just that I woke up alone, and while my family smiled over pancakes and mimosas, I sat at home wondering what I'd done wrong. I mentioned the Instagram story, the caption, the silence, and how, when I asked for honesty, what I got instead was a digital trail of betrayal. A documented plan to replace me, to move on without confronting me like an adult, like a partner. I didn't name call. I didn't curse. But I made it clear, I was not disappearing. I was not shrinking. I was not the villain. Then came the second part of the plan. Legal. Darren had helped me draft the papers, separation, custody, and a financial breakdown that reflected my years of contribution. Not just the income, but the time, the unpaid labor, the coaching, the late-night science projects, the hospital visits. The emotional anchor I'd been while Eliza ran off to show listings and smile for strangers. We served her during one of her open houses. The courier walked right in, said her name, and handed her the envelope while she stood in a sunlit living room in front of a young couple looking to buy their first home. Poetic. After that, it unraveled quickly. She tried to do damage control, reached out to friends, said I was being vindictive, emotionally unstable, even manipulative. But by then, it was too late. The receipts were everywhere. Her plan B wasn't just a bad secret. It was a blueprint for calculated emotional neglect. People started backing away. Friends we'd known for years stopped replying to her group texts. Her sister Tasha, who had once been smug enough to laugh along on that brunch, quietly took a trip out of state and didn't come back for 3 weeks. I think she realized she'd been caught in the blast radius. Mia and Logan stayed with me most of that first month. Not because I asked, because they chose to. And that was the final nail in Eliza's narrative. She couldn't spin herself as the stable one when the kids kept packing their bags and asking if they could just go back to dad's. And me? I rebuilt. Not quickly. Not perfectly. But I stopped living like a ghost in my own story. I signed a new lease on a house nearby, smaller, but cozy. I let Mia decorate her room however she wanted. Logan got a loft bed and glow-in-the-dark stars. We made waffles on Saturdays. I started journaling. Went back to the gym. Laughed again. And I told the kids the truth, gently, but honestly. That love doesn't mean letting someone walk all over you. That respect goes both ways. And that being a parent, a real parent, means showing up even when it hurts. Eliza and I finalized the divorce 6 months later. She didn't fight it too hard in the end. I think she knew. The image had cracked, and no amount of filters could put it back together. The last time we saw each other in person, she tried one more time. You really made this ugly, James. I looked her straight in the eye. No, I said. You did. I just stopped cleaning up after you. She didn't reply. Just stood there, lips pressed tight, as I walked away with my kids. And as I closed the door behind me, I realized something I wish I had known sooner. Sometimes, being the bigger person means knowing when to stop carrying people who were never walking beside you in the first place. That was the day I finally came home. For real this time.